WrestleMania night number 1. Let's start with the main event. And full disclosure when I say this, again, as Andy mentioned earlier, we're recording on Monday during Monday Night Raw. So if something happens on Raw pertaining to the main event or any of these other matches that we don't cover, sorry. We're trying to do this in real time as best we can. So we'll get to it later in the week, I promise. So let's start with the main event. Andy, the other thing that I want to say is there's going to be a lot of crossover between this main event and the night 2 main event. So we're going to try to keep it as separate as possible. But if you listen to tomorrow and say, I just heard him say that, well, it's because it all bleeds in together, right?
Yeah. I've listened to a lot of different podcasts and stuff about WrestleMania this year and everything. And obviously last week we recorded before Monday Night Raw, and then like the greatest Monday Night Raw in the last decade happened.
I know.
We weren't able to really talk about, but I heard somebody say this and I completely agree with him. It feels like the Attitude Era right now, not because of storylines or even just because there's more cussing or blood or anything like that, but because every single segment last week was nothing but major star after major star after major star.
Yes.
And that's really what the Attitude Era was major stars, everything bleeding together and coming together. So you've got Jimmy and Jay doing their own thing. You've got Seth and Drew doing their own thing. You've got Seth over here doing things with Cody. You've got Cody and Roman and Rock. You've got Punk kind of in the mix of almost all of it at the same time. You've got Becky and Rhea and all of these different things just kind of happening.
Yep.
And while the wrestling last week kind of took a backseat, it was for a good reason because the storylines and everything building into this. So it feels like we are right now at another peak in wrestling, where things are just going extremely high.
Yep.
I will say, depending on how WrestleMania goes and how WrestleMania ends, I think will tell us a lot about if we're still going up the peak or if we're hit the peak and are starting to make that, because once you hit the top, there's only one way to go. And so I think we're going to get a real clear picture of that post-Mania.
And I get what you're alluding to, and I'm trying not to get to that.
It's more than just the main event.
Right,
it's more than just the main event, I think. I think there's a lot of really interesting ways we can go. However, the main event's the main event for a reason.
Absolutely it is.
If it flops, then the whole WrestleMania is kind of looked at in a bad light in a lot of ways. So I think it's important.
I think you're spot on with that, because I think you look at WrestleMania 34, I think is a great example. I'm not saying this just because I was there as my first WrestleMania, so I'm a little bit biased, but top to bottom, man, that card is loaded with incredible talent. And then the main event happens. And I think between the main event and a lot of people's expectations of AJ and Nakamura, between those two things and Nicholas, that people realize that was the last 3 things that happened on that show. AJ Nakamura, Nicholas, and Brock and Roman. So I think they just forget that the rest of the WrestleMania was an incredible show because of how it turned out. So I think you're spot on there.
Yeah, and I think last year is a great point of this too, of outside of Theory and Cena, because I think that was just objectively not great.
Correct.
And you take the Miz, Shane McMahon debacle and Pat McAfee return, all that stuff. You take that aside, I think last year was the best WrestleMania of all time, except for the last 5 minutes. And I think the last 5 minutes really put a damper on it. So again, not even saying Cody losing would put a damper on it. It has to make sense.
Absolutely.
The main event has to end in a way where it makes sense and not a Vince Russo swerve just to swerve, brother.
Absolutely.
So I'm hoping we get something like that.
Well, because last year Cody lost, you were ticked. A lot of the wrestling community was ticked. Dave LaGreca, I hope somebody was holding him back from a ledge. That's all I'm saying. Anyway.
Or Roman.
Oh, yeah, exactly. But we were so disappointed because in the moment it was terrible. But many people, and I think Sam Roberts, I always have to give him credit because for some reason, that dude has some incredible hindsight when it comes to wrestling. He really does. But he has said, Cody Rhodes will be more popular losing than he will winning at WrestleMania 39. And it happened. He's more popular today than he was a year ago. So I'm not saying that they could ride that all the way to 41. Again, we're not trying to predict that. What I'm saying is we could look at the main event and say that WrestleMania flopped because the main event didn't make any sense. But 6 to 8 months down the road, it could make all the sense in the world. And we look back and say, wow, the storytelling and it all made sense and it hit perfectly and whatever, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's a great chance. And I still don't like the finish last year. I still think it was a mistake. However, I think they've done a great job of keeping Roman and Cody separate until Mania this year.
Yes.
And I think that was really important. I do think while it made Cody more popular, it hurt the bloodline a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Because the Jimmy turn and not turn and then turn again makes no sense still. Like Jimmy hating Jay for no reason still makes zero sense. I don't think there's a way to kind of back out of that one except just to move on and say, oh, well, we'll forget about that in a year's time or whatever. So there's still some stuff that doesn't make a lot of sense with it. And I think we kind of bled that story a little too long, which is why I'm kind of hoping going into WrestleMania 41, we're not still bleeding the story for every drop it's worth at this point.
Sure.
But as long as it makes total sense, or even not necessarily makes total sense, but makes something compelling, then I think people are going to get on board. But if you're going to have Cody lose, which we're not predicting that yet, we're just kind of spitballing here.
Yep.
If you're going to have Cody lose, you gotta have something in the pipe ready to roll that's going to get people back on board.
Yep, absolutely. We'll talk about Jay and Jimmy in a minute because that, again, all these things bleed together like we just said. But if you're watching Monday Night Raw, you'll see this as you're listening to this on Tuesday. Breaking news, Clash of the Castle is back. Announcement of city and venue coming tomorrow as Tuesday. Wow. So that event is coming back. I don't know how they could put it anywhere
outside
I don't know how they could put it anywhere other than where they had it last year, but I hope they'll figure it out, I guess.
There's a pretty big stadium, I've heard.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
If they do Wembley, I swear if they do Wembley, it'd be the funniest thing.
Yeah, I know. All right, let's try to get back on track here. Main event, night number 1, Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins versus The Rock and Roman Reigns. Major implications for night number 2. If Rock and Roman win, then the night 2 match between Cody and Roman, bloodline rules, anything goes. If Cody and Seth win, the bloodline barred from ringside, night number 2. Lots of implications here. The Rock getting back in the ring for the first time in 11 years, aside from 2016, in the 7-second match.
We don't talk about that.
Yes. First time in 11 years, Rock gets in the ring. Cody, Seth, Roman pulling double duty at WrestleMania this year. First time anybody's done it besides The Miz in this 2-night format. You mentioned it, man. Raw last week really took this match to another level, almost to the point where I want to see Cody versus Rock more than Cody versus Roman.
Yeah, it's crazy that if you'd have told me that Roman would have been the third most interesting guy in this story like a year ago, I would have told you you're crazy. But he is at this point. Like, it's Rock Cody is so intriguing after everything that happened Monday night. Obviously, I'm still excited to see Roman Cody. I think that's your Mania main event, but I think they're setting up SummerSlam already.
Yep.
Or at least the Saudi show or something like that with Rock Cody.
They have to.
As long as Rock doesn't get hurt in the Mania match like last time. But listen, I can't tell you how excited I was when I saw Cody bleeding. Because it was just, it adds something to it. Yep. It adds such an element to it, especially the Ric Flair blonde hair bleeding in it. There's just something about blood and blonde hair that just looks fantastic. Yeah. And it fits so well to the point where I'm ready to see Cody get his revenge. Like, I'm ready to see Cody get the jump on The Rock. And I firmly believe My one like lock of WrestleMania night one is I think we see Rock bleed. I think we're going to see The Rock busted open bleeding. I think we're going to see Cody busted open and bleeding. And because it's going to be an old school, I think both of these main events are going to be overbooked.
Sure.
In the best ways possible.
Sure.
And I'm ready for that.
Sure. It's going to be a lot of fun. It really is. I don't know that I'm ready to say I think they're going to bleed, but we have seen with The Rock and with this story, the rules that we are normally used to are
don't apply.
They don't apply. I was going to say they get bent, but you're right. They just don't apply. Throw them out the window. Doesn't even matter. The Rock is the boss. He's the final boss. He's on the board. So it doesn't matter. I will say this though, Andy, as excited as I am about this match, Rock coming back, just everything that could happen and will happen in this match. As excited as I am for this match, I feel like there's been too much emphasis put on this match and not enough on the Cody Roman singles match. Do you get that at all?
No, I completely agree. I think, because we talked about this a little bit last week with Tyler and with Katie, that the night one main event is absolutely overshadowing the night two. Mm-hmm. And part of that is because I think the Roman Cody face-to-face didn't really, like last year, that was the moment. I remember vividly those two guys face-to-face when they shook hands in the middle of the ring. All of that was the moment where I was really excited for it.
Yeah. This
year, the face-to-face, I was like, yeah, but you guys were going at each other's throat on Raw, and now you're just out here trying to be cordial. Like, I don't want that this year. Yeah. I want the promo Cody cut on Raw with nobody in the ring before The Rock came out to be the promo he cut to Roman in his face, telling him he hates his guts and all of that. That should have been the promo we got to heat that part up, because I feel like that main event doesn't have a lot of heat, because I think last year's main event adds a lot to it. Yeah. However, I do think I think something is going to happen. I don't know what yet. I don't know what the prediction is for this yet. But I think something's going to happen in the night one main event that is going to put heat on the night two main event. And I think it's more than just the stipulation. I think there's something that's going to happen in the match or post-match that is going to add more to that match.
I agree. And again, not to predict night two, but I feel like that we'll talk about this more on tomorrow's show, or on tomorrow being Wednesday's show. Sorry, our recording timeline and our release timeline is a little funky, ladies and gentlemen.
It's a mess this week.
just bear with us. No, I think you're absolutely right. I think this match, we talked about the stipulations that it has, the implications on night two, but you're right. Whatever happens is going to drastically influence night two, because you look down the card, Jay and Jimmy, we're going to get to in a second, you put them on night one as well, so that there's no bloodline matches in night two. And Rock's freed up, Jay's freed up, Jimmy's freed up. I mean, you got Rollins, but,
Solo's free all weekend.
Rikishi's not doing anything.
Jacob Fatu doesn't have anything, I don't think.
Off and Sika, all the things. So it'll be really interesting to see how all this plays out. It's not a no rules match unless I'm unaware of something. I don't know how it gets there.
I think The Rock said bloodline rules, no disqualification. I think he said no disqualification in it.
Okay, well, if he did, then this is a good old fashioned.
Or unless it's no disqualification for the bloodline only, or something like that.
Yeah, maybe. Well, listen, we'll see what happens when the bell rings. Remember, Andy's already said it. The rules are out the window. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's going to be crazy.
It would not shock me, Andy. It wouldn't shock me if Rock and Roman pull something like, like Kurt Angle used to do back in the day, where he said, like, oh, you can't do this and you can't do that. And then something would happen and then get back on the mic and say, oh, no, but you can't do this and you can't do that. Oh, and we can do this. It wouldn't shock me if something like that happens, if I'm being honest.
Me either. Yeah, me either. Or we get a WrestleMania 27 repeat, which that was such a great WrestleMania main event between Cena and The Miz, where The Rock just restarts the match.
Right. Absolutely.
Like if Cody wins, I swear, if Cody wins and Rock restarts the match just to have Roman win, would just be not great.
What a heel move. What a heel move. My goodness.
Yeah, but that's at that point, that's just like, what are we doing?
Right.
What are we going
Yeah, for sure. All right, what a main event that's going to be night number 1. I am super excited. I mean, there's nothing specifically to talk about in this. Just go watch the shows. They have done a tremendous job from the WrestleMania kickoff press conference up until now. Again, we've said it ad nauseum, Andy, whether they pivoted or not, whether this was the original plan or not, this Rock character is spot on. They are doing a tremendous job of building to this match. And like you said, hopefully something in this match leads to night number 2. Andy, let's get into the night 2 card, and let's start with the main event, man. Let Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns rematch of last year's WrestleMania. Not too many times, Andy, have we seen back-to-back WrestleManias where we have seen the same exact match, especially for the World Heavyweight Championship. The one that comes to mind right now is Bret Hart and Yokozuna, WrestleMania 9 and 10.
I mean, we've seen the same guy go after it, but not the same matchup.
Not the same match.
31-32 was Roman going for it twice, but it was against different people.
Right. We've seen Cena go after it twice or defend it, but it was against different people. So this is interesting, man. It's very, very interesting. We said it on yesterday's show. We feel like a lot of attention is being put on the tag team match on night number 1 for good reason. Yeah. But it all leads to night number 2. It all leads to not just Cody's story, but Cody's redemption story. We all know what happened last year. Can he finish the story this year? We both picked the Bloodline to win night number 1 after watching Monday Night Raw and after letting that settle in. Are you sticking with that prediction? And how does that transition into night number 2?
Yeah, I don't see where it would make a lot of sense. Well, I'll say this. Whoever wins night 1 is not winning night 2.
Absolutely not. There's no way.
So if Cody and Seth win night 1, then I am real nervous going into night 2, just to be completely honest with you. However, with that being said, I think they're beating down Cody and Seth for as much of the adversity as they want to tell their stories on night 2. Because you got to remember, Seth's story going into it is with Drew.
Yep.
So that gives him possibly a reason as to why he lost his title.
Yep.
And then going in for Cody, he has had all the cards stacked against him for over a year and possibly finally getting his moment. So I don't see any way that the Bloodline do not win night 1.
Okay. Let's say they win night number 1. And we're looking at night number 2. We're not making the prediction.
Right.
But it's Bloodline rules. We saw Monday Night Raw what happens to Bloodline rules. Apparently the match doesn't even finish. So if we get a non-finish at WrestleMania,
you can't even win.
That doesn't even happen. Who knows? We saw the battle between The Rock and Cody Rhodes. We saw the production truck shot. You've predicted the Avengers ending, and all of the baby faces come out to help Cody and, clear the ring of the Bloodline. I think that can happen, man, but just a lot of stuff can happen in this match. We said it on yesterday's podcast, man. Don't feel like a lot of attention has been put on this singular match, but maybe that's because of what's going to happen night 1 makes this one feel bigger.
Yeah, listen, I think if this is a Bloodlines rule match, it is going to be insanely overbooked.
Yep.
I mean, insanely overbooked. And I mean that in the best way possible. I don't mean that as like a dog and get or anything like that. I want this to go, because we've seen some overbooked matches that are horrible. But then we've seen some other ones where it's like, this is the most fun, and this is just pop after pop after pop. And so I could see a scenario where if we do the Avengers style, people come down to help Cody, I don't think anyone should touch Roman. I think the only one to touch Roman is Cody, because I think you want to make sure Cody is the one to beat Roman by himself.
Sure.
However, I do think you have everyone else that is coming out to help. If they do this, run off Solo, run off Jimmy, run off The Rock. And you just leave
and
Roman
whoever
and
else.
you leave Cody by himself. Yeah, and you just leave him by himself. Because I mean, there's a way that Drew could get involved in this still.
Yes.
So I think there's a chance we see, I predicted Jimmy wins.
Mm-hmm.
And so him coming out there, Jay coming out to run him off, I think that could lead to SummerSlam. Even between those two, we do this again at SummerSlam between Jimmy and Jay, or even at Backlash if you wanted to.
Yep.
I mean, Roman's got history with Cena. Rock's got history with Cena. Rock's got history with Austin. I mean, if Austin's music hits, I'm never going to be disappointed to hear that the glass shatter and here comes Austin.
Right.
I mean, there's so many different stories. Kevin Owens can come out. Sami Zayn could come out. There's so many things that you could
Randy Orton could come out.
Randy Orton could come out. I think if Randy comes out, I'm a little nervous because I think he could go after Cody, could just turn heel just to turn heel.
Very true. Very true.
But I think this is going to be overbooked. I just hope they if Cody wins, Cody needs to be the one to beat Roman definitively. No help. They can help run off the bloodline, but they do not need to touch Roman.
Are you okay with? And let's go ahead and get this prediction out of the way. And then we'll come back and we'll predict it rapid fire at the end and just recap it. Let's get this prediction out of the way, though. Let's say that Cody Rhodes wins. I know he's your lock of WrestleMania. That Cody Rhodes wins. I've gone back and forth for a long, long time. I'm still going to go back and forth before Sunday. Let me just tell you right now. But I'll go ahead and say that I think Cody's going to win.
Yep.
If the cavalry comes in and clears the bloodline, and they don't touch Roman and they don't touch Cody, and then the cavalry clears and then they wrestle for a good 5 to 7 more minutes, and Cody wins. I know that there's this stigma of The Rock holding up Roman's hand at the end of the Royal Rumble 2015 that a lot of people are sour on. And I know that a lot of people want Cody to make sure he finishes his story by himself. Would you then be okay with, after the 3 count, the babyfaces come in to celebrate with Cody? I know he needs his moment, but after that, do they come in to celebrate with him?
I think so, for one reason only. And I think we actually this is our passing, because I don't think we're ever going to get this match, unfortunately. But I think this could be the passing of the torch moment between Cena and Cody.
Yeah.
Of Cena raising Cody's hand. I think if Austin is there and raises Cody's hand, it's solidifying Cody as this generation's guy.
Yep.
This is the guy.
I'm thinking like Great American Bash 1990 or Starrcade 97, where the baby faces lift up Sting on their shoulders, lift up Cody, do the cheesy old school, this is our guy kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, I would be fine with that, because I mean, even with like running down and getting involved, look at Mankind when he won the title. Mm-hmm. It didn't hurt him at all.
Right.
Even though Austin came out and basically took care of everybody else in that whole thing. So I think that doesn't matter as long as no one touches Roman. Cody definitively beats him, and then establish him as the top guy in the company now by having Cena and Austin and Jay and even Seth, even if you want to do a turn at some point down the line, or even Randy or somebody, just have them out there to celebrate with him, to establish this is the guy now.